We have a lovely treat for you today. My partner MK and I have the honor of presenting to you three-time award-winning adult film stars Setting Jasmine and King Noire, partners who have dedicated their craft to creating a more inclusive and ethically sound adult entertainment industry. They are well known worldwide and heavily sought after for workshops, lectures, and events centering on the decolonization of Black bodies and sexuality. Setting Jasmine is a licensed clinical therapist with a strong emphasis on intimacy post-injury and intimacy post-illness. She is co-owner with King Noire of Royal Fetish Films and has over 20 years of experience as an entertainer, educator, and master fetish trainer. King Noire is an accomplished writer, artist, MC, and global activist using the proceeds of his album, Music is My Weapon, to build a school, fresh water well, and medical clinic in Guinea-Bissau, West Africa. The duo's love of the arts, film, and sex education are combined to produce erotica that stimulates and engages the audience to explore their sexual boundaries. Their work on the decolonization of sex and porn and politics has been featured in Ebony, Vice, Huffington Post, BBC, and more. Let's get into it. How are you both doing?
Doing well, thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Doing great. Glad to be
Good,
here.
good, good. While preparing ourselves for this occasion, we learned that one of the main areas of our work is helping people to maintain intimacy after suffering a major illness or injury. That really hits home with us because that's at the core of our mission. Finding Erotica started with that work in mind. We asked ourselves, how can we create a community where people facing these types of health-related intimacy challenges can heal and still engage in passionate physical relationships? Can you tell us more about the aspect of this in your work?
Yes, I'm happy to share that the work that King and I have been doing is really normalizing intimacy across the lifespan. And as we were talking, leading into the interview and learning more about the host of Finding Erotica, is we're going to spend more of our time in a compromised body than we're not. Whether you want to think about it from the perspective of illness, injury, or just natural, cause and effect of aging, or how we live our life, our lifestyle, and how we treat our body. So it's so important to kind of have a plan of action or clear pathways to how we want to experience intimacy outside of just our sexual performance, our physical sexual performance. Because while we may not know what type of compromises are ahead of us, we do know for sure is that if we are lucky, we will be in our bodies in some compromised situation, but still having intimacy. And that is probably more realistic than having a life of hot, spicy sex forever. How about for you, King?
Well, I think the more ways that we learn to adapt to changes of surroundings, changes within ourselves in every aspect of life, whether it be, physically or emotionally, spiritually, mentally, all of these things is what helps us continue to live a full and prosperous life in whatever we deem success to be. So I definitely think that you can continue to have a very hot and spicy sex life. It's just going to change. If that spice and that passion is inside of you, you're just going to find different ways to express it and different ways to use whatever you have learned throughout time and whatever you've adapted to the changes in your body. So it's just really about what's inside of you and how you want to express it. And that's what I like to work to help people find within themselves and achieve within their everyday lives.
Great, great. You two are partners in every sense of the word, from work to relationship. How did you develop that, and how do you maintain that partnership?
Both of us were thinking of some kind of snappy comeback remark for that. So uh, honestly, I think it's just come from a lot of hard work. You know, it's a constant. We both know that relationships are ever evolving, and you know, human beings are ever evolving. So if we're both going to, you know, take this ride through life together, we both have to keep updating ourselves and updating our relationship. And it's important to stay in communication, but also to work towards comprehension of one another, because we're both different people with different ideas and experiences, but we do share common values, goals, and love for one another. So, you know, that work that work is where it's at.
Totally concur, and a good sense of humor that has helped. I think one of the key things that have, for me at least, that have allowed the last 10 years to be incredibly fulfilling, both personally and professionally, is that I am with a partner that is adaptable to the times, adaptable, to business, to the direction that we want to take professionally. We're okay with moving the goalposts as needed, and we have the same approach personally as well. Is that we've given each other and ourselves room to grow. We use the word exploring a lot instead of creating some hard, fast, and rules that can be really, really hard to stick to for the ever of your relationship. So this is what we're exploring right now. This is how I feel about that. This is how it would look differently. So these kind of ongoing, nonstop conversations from personal to professional allow us to really grow together, and that has been a really beautiful thing that I have always wanted, and I'm so thankful to have this experience now.
Okay. One of your stated goals is the decolonization of the porn industry. What do you mean by that? What do those changes look like, and how is that work going?
Decolonization of sex starts with first acknowledging, you know, what colonization is and what its effects have had on Black folk and our sexuality, our bodies, you know, how we move through society just as sexual beings, right? So the decolonizing part is to find out what was sexuality like prior to colonization. You know, actually, it's something that we really started to focus on when we had the opportunity to travel to Kenya. And we're having conversations with people in Kenya like, oh, yeah, you're right. Y'all were colonized by the English. So y'all would have some of the similar, for lack of a better term, you know, same fucked up shit that we do. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm,
saying? Because
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
America was an English colony, right? And so okay, well, they have a connection because they're still there with their land. So there are still things that they have connections to from their ancestors and generations past. So we're like, oh shit, that John that you have right there, that resembles a flogger. What do y'all use that for? Oh, so some people use it sexually. Oh, so this goes back way before Europeans. Because so many times, you know, when you're into some kinky shit, people are like, oh, that's some white people stuff right there, or Black folks don't do that, or X, Y, and Z. But then when you really get the opportunity to look into our history, and so many of us are attached to our history in ways we don't even know. But like when we think of like you know, like the our cultures that we have connection to, like Europe. You know, like if you talk about like some of the different gods and goddesses, they had all kinds of what we would consider now in modern times like pansexual ideas or trans elements about them. So it's kind of like, okay, so we already had these ideas, we already had these experiences within our culture. There were already people in Africa who lived lives as trans people or had just across the board, LGBTQIA relationships and were accepted within society. I mean, not to say that it was some sort of utopia, but it did happen, you know. So it's like so many people here who are not only fighting against racial injustice, racism, and all these other levels. Also, we have this part of us that we're like, is who I am okay? Is it okay to be me as a black man, as a black woman, as a person of color, with the sexual desires that I have or the things that please me? And really, you shouldn't have to think about that. You should, as long as you're leaving children, people who say no, and animals out of that shit, it's okay. You know what I mean? But it's like we still have these things that we hold on to because our sex was dictated to us on a plantation by someone who only saw our sex as a commodity to sell us. You know, so it's very important to break those chains to actualize yourself as a full human being.
Okay. Just Setting Jasmine, did you want to piggyback off of that?
Mm-mm. No, ma'am. I completely concur with what King is sharing in terms of, in order to decolonize, we have to understand what was there first, and we have to make a decision for ourselves as a culture and a people if those are things that we would like to reintroduce and reclaim, for as part of our, you know, our repertoire around sex and sexuality. It is our God-given right, and we are entitled to our traditions, our culture, and we are also entitled to determine what our future looks like for our bodies and our expression with our bodies.
Okay. And if I could just step back a brief moment to go back to the engagement with healing in physical relationships, I wanted to ask you about your training medical providers in the area of intimacy. If you could share with us that work you do.
Yeah, so now this is looking very much, for King and I, the work that we're doing at this very moment is we have a strong concentration on working with mental health therapists on being able to have discussions around sex, intimacy, sexuality, the decolonization of sex, creating a space that has harm reduction for people of color specifically, or really, you know, just go on to say other marginalized folks. So, and all of our intersections. Mental health, like King, you know, mentioned, the idea of colonization, racism, discrimination, it permeates all of our systems. You know, our medical system and mental health is a part of that system. It permeates our financial system, housing, like on and on and on. And every single system that you can think of, you can certainly find where racism, discrimination, prejudices, and all kinds of judgment and stigma lie. And it's really challenging as a therapist myself when I think about someone managing someone's feelings about themselves, someone helping to manage and support the way someone engages with others, and that someone coming from a place of judgment, a place of stigma, a place of more know-how of a person's body and mind than the expert themselves, that person. So a lot of the work that we do is really helping mental health providers see their own bias in their training, see their own bias in their lived actuality, and how that can be very, very dangerous to working with really anyone, but specifically with people of color and or sex workers of color. We are doing a lot of work also to showcase to mental health providers and medical providers that sex workers are oftentimes first responders. Who do you go to when you want to read erotica? Who do you go to when you want to hear it? Who do you go to when you want tips on, and this is the most common question that King and I both get, how to make your dick bigger? I really wish I had an answer for you guys, but I don't. I keep asking King. But you know, like these kind of questions that are really, they're so personal, and they're full of curiosity. They're also full of shame. You know, they're full of so many things. But as a sex worker, I get more of those questions pointed to me than I do in my first conversation with a therapy client, because we have been taught that there's respectability politics in the coming and goings in mental health and medical care. There are no respectability politics, unfortunately, in sex work. there's an unfortunate aspect of that, but people feel much more comfortable sharing and engaging with us about things that are far more appropriate to work with a mental health professional or a medical professional. So we, decided that it's a little harder to get a billion people, like the billions of people that interact with porn, to understand, like, you can talk to your provider about this, because the reality is they probably can't. It's a lot easier for us to go into the small minority of professionals and train them to be supportive. Some of my earlier work in the medical field was teaching medical doctors how to add in their assessment, how are things going for you intimately? So that even using that broad word, intimately, doctor, what do you mean by that? That gives us an opening to talk about it. Putting in your discharge plan, intimacy is part of your discharge plan. When you are sending someone home that is post, cardiac arrest or healing from a broken hip, they might want to know how and when is it safe to start having sex again, or how their medication might have an impact on intimacy of any sort, including feelings of depression to inability to get hard, stay erect, or to get wet. All of these things should be a part of our discharge plan, because this is not only how we're going to interact outside of the hospital, is how we're going to interact with our partner, how we're going to interact with our own body. The thing that keeps us up at night, and I'm so passionate about it, so give me a second just to take a breath and take it down a couple notches. But I have had the honor through my work as a therapist to sit with many people on their deathbed. No one ever shares with me a great book that they read. No one ever shares with me how amazing their therapist was. They share with me about who they're going to miss, about times that they spent, about intimate moments in their life. No one ever shares with me about how much they enjoyed their medication, how that treatment was awesome, but how having, a couple of extra days on their life to be able to sit and hold the hands of their partner was so important for them, or how their last sexual experience allowed them to feel connected one more time and alive in a way that they may never feel again. To me, that is hands down good medical care, more so than, pushing papers and talking about eating every 2 hours in between your medication. All still important stuff, but that is not seeing your patient as a full, comprehensive human. And I think that so much of the work that King and I do is to bring folks that have been stigmatized or are left curious or unaware of where they fit in sexually and intimately, to help them normalize those conversations, help them have a place to feel supported, and also to have these professional systems be able to support these things that are, at the end of the day, the most important things.
Do you feel like physician, nurses, workers in the medical industry are becoming more open to providing that type of discharge information, or are they are they against it?
So I do think that people in general are becoming more open. I do think just kind of looking at our work over just the last 10 years, people are so much information is accessible. So I do think so let me just kind of do this little caveat. King and I used to host these parties, these events, fantasy flight parties. And our clientele were doctors and nurses and attorneys and, just folks that make pretty big decisions and provide care and guidance. They had a lot of the same questions that their patients do. So how is it that my mental health therapist has a hard time saying the word vagina, right? But I'm expecting this person to help me through the most difficult time when my vagina is experiencing atrophy, dryness. I'm not connected with my partner. It's probably going to be hard if we can't even just agree on the language to use, right? So I do think that people in general want this sexual freedom, want openness, want language, want education, but it is not provided as part of their training manual. It is sometimes not even considered appropriate to approach these conversations with our clients. So I do think that it needs to be some overall policy and protocol change from the top. And I also think that from the bottom, freeing people at an individual level, even a cellular level, that it's okay for us to normalize sex, for us to normalize our experience, to be curious about it. Those two things have to be happening at the same time. And so I feel more of it is happening from the bottom up.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for sharing that with us. That was important. It's important to me, and it's important to others to know about how changes are being made in the medical industry. So thank you. I want to know, given the sexual history of African Americans, how does BDSM not replicate past injustice and instead enhance sexual relationships? Is it okay to play with those past injustices? For instance, master and slave are terms used in BDSM. If you could just let
Yeah,
us know
sure.
that.
I think the first thing to know about that is slavery was not consensual. So anything that we do in BDSM as people of color, it's something that we want to do. It's something that we're actually there to experience on our own terms. I do not think that things that are always related to BDSM also have to automatically take us to that place of our generational trauma. But certain things more than others are going to take us there, right? So, like, just think about, like, let's say something like spanking, right? Spanking has been done on this planet for probably as long as people have been having sex, you know? So it's something that across cultural lines and all of that people have engaged in. So spanking might not take you there. Spanking might take you there because of something with your family, getting hit by somebody, you know. But in
Yes.
regards to specifically like slavery or something like that, bullwhips. Bullwhips for me, like, I don't want to get ever hit with a whip just for that reason. You know, I don't I and I think it's okay for us to have those feelings. It's all right. You know, there's nothing wrong with us being like, you know what? That's a thing that I associate with something that was horrific and horrible that was done to my ancestors, to my family. So I'll process it how I need to process it. We don't particularly need to just be like, all right, well, I'm gonna get over it. So, you know, hit me with a bullet. You know, that's not the way that we need to do. I do think that we can start with other aspects of BDSM. You know, there are so many different aspects of it. You know, you do not have to refer to someone as master or slave. You know, it could be dominant and submissive. It could be, you know, Jazz and I, people call us king and queen. You know,
Yes.
and really, you can be as creative as you want and have someone call you whatever you want. You could be the professor, you could be doctor, you know, you could be lord of the whatever. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't have to just be master slave. I do think that there are some very detrimental practices that people try to hide as BDSM. You know, like when people talk about what is it, Queen of Spades or Pogs or just run down the list of this kind of terminology that is also rooted in racism that people try to hide under the guise of BDSM or of some kind of sexual exploration when truly it's just racism popping up in sexual experiences. So I think it's important for people to be as informed as possible and learn as much as you can about it to know that it's in your hands and you are, you know, in that sense, you are the owner and the creator of your sexual experience. Don't do anything that is non-consensual or with people who are there non-consensually, you know, and I think it can be healing within the sense of if it's something you're interested in, it's something you want to try, it's always great to do so, you know, even if you just find out like, yeah, I wanted to try it, but that's not really for me, you know, and the healing aspects of BDSM, you know, for some of us, the physical exertion, whether it's the person providing the flogging or the person taking the flogging. Like it can take you to another place, you know, and sometimes just being able to leave all of the trappings of the world and your thoughts, your everyday thoughts, and just be completely immersed in a moment of pleasure or pleasurable pain, or just learning what your body is capable of can really take you to new heights and a new understanding and appreciation for yourself. And I think in that way, BDSM is extremely healing.
Okay. You see a positive potential in porn. Why have you chosen porn as your selected medium, and what do you see as its potential?
Mm. I'll share. I think I know that King was born to do porn. I know that. So I think he would have to make up an answer to answer that, to like sort of make it seem like he had a whole plan of. I definitely think he was born to do porn. Me, on the other hand, I'm born to make people feel a little uncomfortable. To kind of challenge the norm. For me, porn was really a yucky place. It was like a space on the internet that I couldn't really find a lot of enjoyment, but I kept going back to it, you know. And I kind of had like a little formula down, like if I could just pick like the right thing and skip to the right part, then I could have the right pleasure. So I had a whole plan, and that wasn't even working out. So part of this whole journey for me using porn as a medium for my sexual expression and for that freedom that we're talking about is how could I bring my whole self? Like there has to be a place where a woman that presents like me, I'll just say that because there's a whole bunch of intersections, has a space in sexual expression in this industry. And I won't say that it wasn't there completely. It was just hard to find, or it was hard to find consistently. You know, so there will be a woman that I felt, and it is important that we can see ourselves modeled in entertainment, all forms of entertainment and education and experiences. So I would find somebody that I'm like, oh yeah, like she looks like me, stretch marks and all. And then I'm watching, I'm like, no, don't say that. No, don't do that. Don't let him do that to you. You know, and it turns into trauma. So my experience has been about like doing the thing that I know there are other people who want to see it because I know I can't be alone. And knowing, like having these conversations with my girlfriends and we're all saying like, yeah, watch that, but skip, don't watch that part where you just like, we're all having the same experience with this stuff. We're all buying it. So I want in on that money. I want in on that experience. You know what I mean? So like, just, it's that idea of like, if you want something done, do it yourself. And so that's what we have done. I've found that there is definitely a niche for people of color to experience sex as their full self and showcase that in porn and benefit from it greatly. And I have, you know, for me, it's given me a safe place to explore all of these kinks that you just can't roll up to your normal bar and be like, hey, do you think like in 10 minutes you can sort of like kidnap me and like do this thing to me and then return me whole to my family? You know, like that takes too much time to figure out and then to safely go through it. So I have used porn as also a space to play safely and to create art and to sell art and to have conversations like the ones that we're having here and to challenge the institution that I paid so much money to that tells me you can only be a respectable Black woman. And that would be the mental health institution. So I'm sticking it to them every time I'm getting sticked to in porn is that I can show up as a full person. I can do your little therapy with your concepts and theories. And I can also showcase autonomy of my body, autonomy of my ideas. I can be off of work and be my full self. And there's nothing you can do about it. And so this is my advocacy. This part of me having sex on camera, sharing my body, sharing my exploration is a part of my protest. So you're welcome to it.
Thank you.
I do want to build off that a little bit. I do think I was born for porn as well as a whole lot of other things. But for me, I initially got into adult entertainment through survival sex work. And my initial experiences in it, I had some really, really good ones, but I also had some bad ones, you know, and the bad ones came from probably whatever Jasmine was watching at the time, you know, how we were treated, whether it be on set for a film or with cam studios or even in person with in-person booking sessions and live shows, you know. And I really I stepped away from the industry for a while, and when Jasmine and I started working together again and we were at our fantasy flight parties, those doctors and lawyers and all those other well-to-do and professional, amazing black folk and brown folk would ask us, like, why can't we find any good porn? Why can't we find something where we're represented in a way besides the stereotype, or like, it's one thing to have fetish play. It's another thing when you as a person are the fetish. You know what I'm saying? And people are not fetishes. People are people.
Yes.
So, we wanted to create something that people could look at and enjoy and not feel that disgust afterwards. Like, if you need to wash afterwards, it's because you just sweated and came and did all the nasty things that we were inspiring you to do, instead of watching it and be like, I might be able to wash my body, but I can't wash my soul and my mind after watching this shit. So I think it was really like that. And then also, I've always viewed sex and romance and passion as something to just be intertwined with art, whether it's like the sapio side of me or just that carnal side of me that loves to see two people lost in one another. And I felt that, looking at most porn, it looked like it was made in one of those doctor's offices that they don't ask you about intimacy. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no kissing, there's no focus on a woman's pleasure. Uh, shit, you might not even see the guy's face at all. He's just a torso of thrusting, right? So, like, how does all of that also affect how the rest of the world now has sex? I definitely hear so much from people about, like, yeah, it's kind of just over when it's over, or he doesn't do this for me, or, you know, we get asked questions from men who are like, yo, I want to try being submissive, but I'm afraid, how I'm going to be viewed, or like all of these things. And it's like, because you don't see it somewhere, sometimes it means like, whoa, am I the only one that's thinking this? Because there's so much of this other stuff that's out there. So we
Yes.
wanted to be able to provide, um, not just alternatives, but like a better option. Because it's like, when somebody hands you filthy water, if you're thirsty and that's your only option, you're gonna drink that shit. You know what I'm saying? But if someone's also providing you some clean water or something with some flavor, you're gonna be like, yo, I want to try that right there. And then you'll understand that there's so much more to it. And I think that that's what got us really into it as
Do you
well.
do you find that with Black folk, they are grateful and, thankful when they come across your platform and they see your work?
I
Yeah.
definitely get some really, really amazing messages from
Mm.
people, either emailing our website or connecting to us on social media of some sort. Just like, and we've been doing it for a minute now. So there are also, people in the industry who will be like, I saw y'all shit and knew that I could be myself in
Mhm.
this industry, and that, like, that, and like when fans are just like, I see myself in y'all. Like, those are like the highest compliments that you can get.
I I definitely want to add to that. I think was definitely nervous getting into the industry that I would have a lot of backlash, and I would say the people that I went into doing this with in mind, which were Black women, Black femmes, they love it. They love it. Even if they are like, I stop, I'm not supposed to be watching that, or I don't watch porn. I don't watch your porn. I'm just happy that you're doing it. I'm happy to know that if people are going to see us being sexual, that they also have this representation as well. So I don't get treated, this way when I'm out dating because someone learned how to do this through porn. Um, the people that I absolutely did not go into this industry for are the only ones who tend to give me the hardest time, and that is straight white men. They want to know why I'm not doing different things with my body than, like, there's millions of other videos out there for you to enjoy, but they're like, this one stands out because it's not doing what my gaze prefers that it does? Or how can I be a therapist and porn? And you know, really that just showcases that particular person's brain is unable to span beyond what is right in front of them. I am actually doing both things at one time in front of you, and you're still asking, how is this being done? So it's easy to just kind of like turn those kind of comments off, because you know that it is that is below your pay grade to respond to. You know, that is someone else's work to help them get to a part where they can see what's happening in front of their own eyes. But the feedback otherwise has been incredibly important. And it hasn't just been like, oh, you're a Black man that treats women nice, I can see myself in you. I see a father that can also like have this real passionate love about his children's mother. That's something that we don't get to see. And, you know, we get so stereotyped the opposite. So we're even talking about not just like how you sexually do something, but how even we relate as a couple on screen. Or as a mom, I thought it was great that your breasts were leaking and you weren't like turned off and had to go to the bathroom and stop. You just allowed yourself to keep having this sexual experience. And so I think that there's something really important. And it's not even that King and I are the only performers who have like these dynamic lifestyles. It's that we're also making it safe for other performers to showcase their humanity.
And it's going to be better for their business. It's the level of humanity that's there. So...
All right.
No, sorry.
Oh, no, completely agreeing. Like, you know, it's not just about the consumer either. It is about other folks being able to see the things that seem so complex and awkward and challenging about sex, just seeing it kind of play out as naturally as it actually does, and packaged and provided to you to have an example. If even not to follow, just an example, just another form of representation. You know, even having women say to me, like, I'm worried about what my body is going to look like after I have kids, but I see it doesn't bother you. And I get to go like, yeah, girl, it bothers me, but not to the point that I'm not going to show it, you know? And then we have like real conversation about that, about experiencing our bodies over the lifetime, kind of bringing us back to our original, you know, conversation of us doing the work that we do.
Yes. And I tend to get that in the polling community as well. Women who come in and the diversity of women, and they're, you know, thinking about their bodies and their stomachs and what they have on. And because you're wearing very little clothing, because you have to stick on the poll, they come in and they're thinking, oh my gosh, I've got scars, I've got stretch marks, I've got this. And it puts a little bit of a fear and maybe intimidation to those women who, quote unquote, look, you know, thin, or they look a particular way. And so, I'm glad that you're breaking that barrier, helping to break that barrier with women, to let them know that it's okay that you show yourself. You know, it's okay. These are our bodies, and this is how we age, and these things happen. We have babies. People have marks on them, birthmarks when they're born. So it's normal. It's okay. And I think it's great that you have also a partner in there who supports you in that, you know, and for someone else to be able to see that, yes, there are men that are out there and they're okay with seeing women and having women who have stretch marks and babies, and it's okay. And I think we need to bring more of that to the screen, so we're not sitting in a place where it is, again, this thing of perfection, and that we're able to be comfortable with showing the imperfections.
Yeah, I think that I'm sorry, Jasmine, you about to say something? Jasmine?
You can go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I think most men don't have a problem with stretch marks or birthmarks or scars. You know, I think that there's like this huge push because beauty products are a huge industry. So they got to sell you on hating who you are in order to sell you, I don't know, oil of Olay or Johnson and Johnson's powder that gives you cancer. You know what I'm saying? They have to sell you these products because if you knew what the products actually did in the end result, you wouldn't want them shit.
Mhm.
You know, but there are so many men out there who, you know, I do get a lot of messages about like the scene that Jasmine and I did, where Jasmine was pregnant. And I get dudes who hit me up like, my lady's pregnant. I need to know what positions I can do because she's sexy as hell to me right now. Like I
Mhm.
want her all the time, but sometimes it's uncomfortable. You know what I'm saying
Yes.
for her. So how can we do this in a safe way, or
Mhm.
you know? So I think that if you've been with somebody for any amount of time and y'all have grown together and you've survived all the challenges that life brings y'all together, you know, you appreciate your partner on a level that sometimes I think we have to sometimes go back to the early stuff because it's like you appreciate your partner in this way, like how Jasmine just said, like people ask questions that are below the pay grade, right? It's like you're at this super high executive level of relationship now, and you forget what it was like when you first started working there, and you were like, "Oh shit, I gotta make sure I handle all this shit in the mailroom." You know what I'm saying? Like when you're in a relationship for so long, and you're at, yep, always go down to that mailroom. Yeah, nah, handle those packages. No, but like on some real, like it does happen because we get so much we're busier. We have our kids, you know, we have our families, we have aging parents or other relatives that we have to take care of. We have, you know, school functions, community functions, work, all this other stuff. So we're appreciating our partner on this level, like, yo, you could get all this shit done. And sometimes we forget to just be like, but you fine as fuck too, you know what I'm saying? Like it's
Yes.
important it's important to sometimes go back to those reasons that maybe attracted you to your partner or made you first really find that interest or start loving your partner, because then it helps keep things fresh and renew. And I think, and this is kind of going back to the other question that we were just talking about. Unfortunately, in a lot of porn, there is this strange, and to me it's strange. There's this strange fascination with people turning into adults instead of people maturing as adults,
Mhm.
right? So everything is like 18 and this and barely, like I don't want somebody that's barely legal. Like that's not an
Right.
interest to me. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like, but I think that there is this very odd look at that then forces anybody, whether it's a man or a woman, to look at somebody who, you know, they just got here on the planet. So they might not have had as many scarring opportunities or stretching opportunities as other people. So it's kind of like, you know, you're forced to look at that in a lot and so much because also within American culture, youth is valued more than age, and not just because you're older doesn't mean you're wiser. It does mean that you survived though. So you've
Mhm.
probably been doing something right, you know. But within this culture, youth is marketed as a commodity in order to sell drugs, beauty products, music, everything. You know, so it does put a lot of it puts a lot on people as they age because they're like, well, what am I doing wrong that I'm not that? And you can never go back.
Mhm.
You need to work on where you are now and where you're on your way to. You know, and I think that it's important to be able to show people loving in many different stages, fucking in many different stages, because then you know, like, oh, okay, I could still throw down when I'm in my
Right.
60s and 70s. You know what I'm saying? There might be some different things that, like, without going like for too long, you know, Jasmine and I, when we did parties, one of my favorite experiences that we ever had at any of our parties was with a couple, and the gentleman was a veteran, and I think he had taken shrapnel in his back, so he was not able to, you know, move in the ways that he wanted to move when he was making love to his wife. So we showed him how to use the sex swing, and if you put it on your door and he's got his back up on the door, it took him right back to his favorite position of doggy style in a way that also didn't hurt his back. And like just the joy that they both had, but just as a guy, like seeing the joy that he had on his face, knowing that like when y'all leave this fucking party, we are doing all the back shots humanly imaginable. And like I don't know, to this day, it's still like one of my favorite experiences of being a sex worker and helping other people. So it's like it's there and it's possible, but we have to provide that clean water and that flavor for people to be able to bring it into their lives.
Yes. Jet Setting Jasmine, did you want to say anything to that?
No, just reliving that, seeing that light bulb go off for that couple. I was just like, with just one little device, right? Just tweaking something small, took what was a barrier out of the way of their intimacy. Yeah.
We share a common theme, goals of educating our audiences about sex and eroticism. How do you elevate your audience's view of sex in porn? How do you undo the negativity surrounding it, especially when some of the criticism is valid?
One of the things that we do, I think is a real direct way of doing this, is we put in a lot of content that usually gets cut out of porn, to help people understand that, like, you know, I just posted something recently. Is King and I were doing a live show, and I started cracking up laughing in the midst of him being in the mailroom, as he's described. But we're having like this great sexual connection experience, and then like in a moment I realized like, whoa, I left the room. We're still at work here. And just started cracking up laughing because that was my natural response. And, you know, we didn't ask for a reset. We didn't cut that out of the film. It's like, this is natural for us. And so like something along those lines where, you know, we'll leave it in editing, or we'll draw that out, very, very specific aspects, conversation that we may be having during sex or leading up to or negotiating our sex. We put that stuff out even more than the content, because that's usually what draws people in, and it raises the consciousness of what sex can be like. Or, you know, I've had people say like, the way that you told him where or how you wanted to have sex before y'all did it, like, how did you do that? And they're really asking like, where does that come from? Where does the safety come from to do that? Where does the confidence come from doing that? And also, how did you know what you wanted? You know, and so these things that we as performers sometimes take for granted in our work. And when I say performers, I'm also including the people that edit it, the people that distribute it, just the industry. We take for granted that people understand that we have like these little laughing, really moments of chemistry before the camera turns on, or we've known this person for, you know, whatever, for a long time. They take for granted that some of these things can be really used to elevate people's intimacy, their sex, and honestly, safety. You know, so many things happen in intimate spaces because negative things happen in intimate spaces because people don't have the language, the courage, or the confidence to speak up for themselves, or even the know-how to observe what's happening in front of them. Is that that person saying, oh, stop it? Are they saying stop it, or are they saying come closer? You know, those kind of little nuances that we don't get to see worked out in porn. And then we hear about how it was confusing in real life. We try to make our art not confusing. So the art part may very well be there, but you're also going to see a before and after of how we came to creating that piece. So that way, when someone is watching from home, they don't have to just look at like, these are professionals. You should not try this act at home. It's like, these are professionals, and here's how you may want to try incorporating this at home. We give you that tool because there's enough, like, it's okay. We're not worried about somebody becoming a stunt double and taking our work. We want our audience to have these pleasurable experiences that we're having because we totally get off on it when they share. You know, so that's the part 3 for us. It's the, you know, building it together. It's like, ooh, this is so fun, and it's intimate, it's creative. Then the doing it physically, this feels amazing. We're doing the exhibitionist thing, the voyeurist thing. And then we get that third high when someone says, we tried this at home and it didn't look like that, but it damn sure was funny and we had a great time. Then I feel like that is a full circle arousal and completion with my work, at least.
Yeah, I think that every industry, every art form, all of it, everything has negative aspects to it, and usually the negative aspects are warranted. I think the thing is with porn is anything sex is easily vilified because of the puritanical history of the United States, but then also America's hypocritical nature when it comes to sex. You know, sex is sold in everything, things that don't even have to do with sex, things that don't require sex, things that don't even have the outcome of sex with it. You know what I'm saying? But then you have people vilifying women for breastfeeding in public. You know what I'm saying? So America is super hypocritical with that, but then it's also kind of like it's one of those words. Like even the word porn for most people is cringeworthy. You know, if we just say erotica, then nobody really bats an eye about it. If even if you say like, oh, it's sex art, people don't really bat an eye. But once they think porn, they have a lot of negative ideas that are attributed to it. And the thing is, like how you said, like some of them are warranted, but I think that people don't get the full picture because the full picture is not ever presented to them because they're told it's porn, so you shouldn't see any of the picture. You know, if we only went by the negative of any business or profession, I don't know what people would do anymore. You know what I'm saying? I would say that there are more criminals in Congress and the Senate, and there are probably less people in both of them as a whole than most industries out there, right? But we still continue. People still go out and vote, you know, because they have a hope, and I do have a hope that more people who are ethical with the content that they create in regards to adult films um, are put more to the forefront so people can see that there are people who actually care about humanity's sexuality and sexual expression and the art of it, and that we see as we move forward, you know, more women in positions of power, both in front of and behind the camera, uh, more queer folk in front of and behind the camera in positions of power, so that we can start to see the totality of human sexuality instead of just, as Jasmine mentioned, the white male gaze, which in a lot of ways, especially in America, is violent, brutal, and non-consensual with all the other people in America. And that's its history. So maybe that might also be the reason why they think that porn can only be bad if it's created by white men who've raped everybody. So there's that.
Yes.
Can I just share that comment about fetish and what we've learned? In that one of the things that we do in our own attempts at decolonization is also to being actively anti-racist and trying to uncover, deconstruct, redefine, and reclaim. And one of the things that we find of racism so deeply embedded in the DNA of most everything, in particular in terms of sex, sensuality, and bodies, that one of the things that we found in our research and wrote a blog about it is the word fetish. And in the DNA of fetish is racism, because the word was invented by Portuguese sailors, 1500s, observing African practices that they had no name for, and that were outside the colonial realm of the European realm, and became a colonial judgment. Well, let's label what we don't understand as fetish, and that word then taken back to Europe became the basis of white supremacist notions. And so if we go about business as usual, we reinforce age-old discriminatory practices that are deeply embedded in something as a word like fetish. And so without critical awareness, without an anti-racist approach, we reinforce things that we don't want to reinforce.
Absolutely. And it's so, I like that you said embedded in the DNA.
Mm-hmm.
You know, muscle memory is real. And, you know, a lot of times, especially in terms of race and the discussion of race and racism, people act like every other thing is embedded in the DNA of America, like, you know, working hard and you know, pulling yourself up by the bootstraps and all those kind of terms that we hear ad nauseum as something that's embedded in American DNA. But racism preceded all of that in the construction of this country. So there's nothing more in the DNA of America than racism. And it's something that in order for us to decolonize, in order for us to move as humanity in a positive direction, it has to be recognized. It has to be spoken about. You know, like if you don't acknowledge that you're sick, you're still going to be sick. And if you don't acknowledge that you're sick, you're not going to be able to start working towards a cure. So it's very important to do that. It's very important to find out the root words, the roots of all of these things, for sure.
Jet Setting Jasmine, in your counseling work, what are the most common questions and or problems that your clients have?
In my therapy practice, a common reason for a lot of my clients, I kind of have like two very distinct groups of clients. I'm a general practitioner, so people are more than welcome to come for a myriad of mental health issues or concerns. But the pockets of clients that I tend to get are sex workers who want to just process life. That's it. They don't want a therapist asking them to leave their job. They don't want a therapist trying to learn how to do different kinky or sexual acts covertly while in therapy. They know that I'm not taking another book of notes on how to take their children away from them because they're pornographers. So that is a huge pocket of my clientele, is providing non-judgmental mental health care to sex workers. So that's one. The second pocket is primarily women who have experienced sexual violence and are working through their sexual trauma or would like to work through their sexual trauma so that they can, have a healthy sex life now. What I tend to find the most in those pockets of women that do seek my services are that they're ready. They have either found a partner or they have found a lane of intimacy that they want to be able to explore free of traumatic experiences, free of the world's stigma, free of generational trauma. And maybe they have tried that one thing and realized that, trauma is very much present, and we need to do this work to be able to get on the other side of that goal. And then sometimes those two overlap just because of the high propensity of sexual violence towards women in any industry, for that matter. So I do a great deal of work around sexual trauma. I think it is also this year, and I haven't really haven't had a chance to kind of look back at presenting problems of this year's clients, but a large number also came over to therapy to specifically get care from a woman of color. Because of, all the things that we're sharing about here, but this messaging of how important it is for Black people to have a safe space to do everything, and the realization of how unsafe we have been navigating this world. Even for those of us who are experiencing it, it's one thing to experience and survive it and push through it. It's another thing when somebody says, yeah, this is what it's been doing to you all along. And here's some places where you didn't even know that it was having an impact on you, but now it's on your 5 o'clock news. And before you go to bed, let's just also remind you that you probably didn't get this job or into this school or get that because you were, of color as well. So a lot of old, not existing trauma, really obviously came up this year, and the intersections of that in terms of work, in terms of sex, in terms of how you want to raise your children, where you want to live. These are a lot of the discussions that I was having this year, which, usually race is kind of like an undercurrent that's always there. This time I can definitely see the intersections of it in every aspect and every conversation that I had with my clients, even those clients that are not of color.
Okay. King Noire, what is the nature of your work with men? Given the traditional porn's impact in shaping gender roles, are there things that men need to unlearn and relearn about sex, women, and relationships?
They need to unlearn the fact that you can have pleasure through your booty hole. End of no. I think there's so many things. Wow. Starting number one is that men do not usually have a talk with older men about how to care for their bodies. So, whether it's from washing yourself or specifically washing your penis, washing your ass, it seems that part is just skipped over or left up to men to learn on their own, which also means that pleasure is also learned on their own as well, like self-exploration. There's how to please or be around somebody else in a respectful manner without being an asshole, there's so much that I go over, and it's funny. The reason I said the first thing I said is because, I grew up in Jersey under those same kind of notions where it's like your pleasure happens through your dick, and that's it. Like anything else, it makes you somehow not a man. Like I don't know how that works, but so I've been exploring myself, and it's taken a whole lot of years for me to be comfortable. But I do it as kind of like, fuck it, I'm gonna try something new on camera, and let's see where it goes. You know what I mean? And I enjoy doing that because then my fans or men in general will see that and they'll be like, that's okay. I'll be like, man, it's my body. Of course it's okay. I'm gonna do what the hell I want with myself. Like, am I, so you can do the same. It's okay. You know what I'm saying? And I think that there, especially within our community, and this goes back to the decolonizing idea, is when you have everything stripped away from you and you can literally lose your life at any minute, and there be no recourse for that. There be no justice served, or someone can do something to any of your loved ones at any moment. The little things that we cling to of what we feel a man is supposed to be is, it can mean everything to you, because you're people want to think that we're still not free. We're not. We live under just a different form of oppression, and I know this for a fact because I've had the opportunity to travel to other places where people are facing other levels of oppression. I've been to Palestine, I've been to Northern Ireland, and I've seen what oppression looks like for people there. And then they've heard about what oppression is like for us here, and they find it also unfathomable that we live under what we live under. So I think that there is, for Black and brown men, a lot of fear to lose the few things that we grip onto. So it's kind of like, nah, that's not what it is. The fact that you're there for your loved ones, the fact that you still hold space. I was like, in these situations where a life has been taken.
Yes.
and you hold space for those people. That
Yes.
that is what it means. That's the part. And I'm sorry because I'm thinking about this trial that's going on right now, and that shouldn't happen to nobody.
Mhm.
But we fight through it. We manage. We find a way. We find a way to excel amidst all of this shit. So you also have to find a way to allow pleasure to be in your life. You have
Mm.
to find a way to accept that it's okay for you to feel how you feel about a woman, a man, a trans person, a non-binary person, or whoever you love. It's okay because you need that love. That love is the most important part. Loving yourself, that's the most, it's all so important. And I think that that's the work that I do that I'm very proud of. You know, like when I go back, I'll not forget this. I went back to my old neighborhood, and the dude I know that is definitely has definitely done some thuggish things. I won't say that he's a thug because he's much more than that. But he's done some things, and he was just like, "Yo, I saw your ass getting eaten in a video, and I tried it with my lady, and I liked it." You know what I'm saying? Like to me, I'm like, too much information, kind of. But thank you for sharing that with me. Like that's what I do this for. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yes.
it was such a, I don't know, it was like a epiphany that we both had in that moment. And it was just like, wow. All right, I'm gonna go to the bodega now. I'll see you later. You know, but it's just like that work is so important because we are always told what we're supposed to be, and we've been violated in so many ways. You know, it's only now that I feel like people are starting to open themselves to the conversation of some of the atrocities that were committed against our ancestors. You know, a lot of times men like to tell the talk about what happened to our babies and what happened to our women during slavery, but do not talk about what happened to us. They skip over buck breaking. They skip over roving bands of white men going to plantations to rape everybody, man, woman, and child. They do not want to speak about that, you know, and it's something we have to speak about. And those conversations, and then also how do we find pleasure and some kind of space for ourselves after that conversation is so important. And I'm here for it, and I'm learning as I go as well. So I'm learning just as much as I'm sharing and teaching. And I think it's a blessing to be able to do it.
Okay. Excuse me. Another area of commonality that we share is in the area of health and fitness. And Finding Erotica, of course, we're going to be releasing and launching soon a series on the YouTube for FE Fitness. How do you integrate physical fitness with the work you're doing to improve sexual health?
All of it. I think that just having a healthy body and whatever your health is, you know, whatever your a healthy body is for you is super important because you know then you can function in the ways you want to function. You're like, oh man, I want to do this particular position. Well, how do I strengthen myself to hold that position? The kind of foods that you bring into your body does help you taste better to your partner. You know, all just the little things mean something. Jazz, you wanna build on that?
Yeah. I love the way that we've played with fitness in our work, you know, because we've learned that so many people, self included, like have a fetish for fitness, right? You know, love to see the way somebody cares for their body in like the most outward way sometimes that we can make that assessment. Sometimes, you know, like obviously health is not necessarily always worn on our sleeve, but for those of us who want to make that quick assessment, like when I look at King, I'm like, yeah, he's doing those push-ups for me. You know, it's like it gives me that without having to like jump in his pants. It's a way to for me to be attracted to aspects of his body that he puts time into, right? So you know, I remember us going to our first FetCon, fetish convention, and getting paid, I don't know, something like $100 to flex my biceps. and not understanding that there's like a whole community of people that want to see women flex their muscles as a sexual turn on. And I was like, wait a minute, because my turn on is the money. And and so, you know, I could just do this, and so like the making those connections to like sex and other aspects of things that we find enjoyable, without having to do necessarily all of the other things, right? Or understanding through our exploration that just putting out a workout video is someone's porn, you know? And like, that's really cool. So when we're talking about earlier in the conversation, about like sex post injury or intimacy, well, that might not even matter for your partner if their, you know, if their turn on or their arousal or their climax happens long before you take off the sweaty workout yoga pants or whatever, right? And King and I did this shoot where it was like a come on my yoga pants clip. Do you remember that we got hired to like, for him to like jack off and come on my yoga pants? And we were like, people are into this. This is cool. We work out. You like to jack off. I got lots of yoga pants. Like, come on my yoga pants, right? So there are lots of ways that fitness has, you know, our exploration and fetish, and also our interest in caring for our bodies and presenting our bodies in a particular way, have shown to show up sexually in more ways than the way of like, great bod, you know, buy my sex. This is more about the like drawing out body parts and attention to care and detail, and those type of things have been super cool. The other thing is that King and I created a fitness program called Steel and Stilettos Fitness. And this is kind of, again, challenging the norm. So we owned a gym, Body Altitudes Health and Fitness. And when we were sitting down coming up with our plans for what we wanted to teach, King was like, I want to teach boxing. Our other partner was like, I want to teach Zumba, and I want to teach like weightlifting. And I'm sitting there thinking like, yeah, I don't want to do any of that. Like, I don't want to grunt. I don't want to do basketball. I don't want anyone hitting me after work. And like, you know, like all of these things sounded so very like male gym centric. But I also didn't want to do yoga and Pilates because that's too like slow, and, you know, and so it's always that like either you're like hardcore grunting and throwing weights, or you are like at the retirement end of fitness, whatever that means, right? So we put our heads together and we created Steel and Stilettos, where I get to wear heels and use my body as body weights and use sensual movements. And I talk confidence through the whole thing, and not just confidence, like, do you think I'm sexy, but confidence of like, is your goal on that mat? Well, let's get down there and let's go work for it. And we're actualizing real life goals while, you know, combining it with that strength and muscle memory, as we were talking about earlier. So even with fitness, we have found ways to say, what does it look like for you? What is actually going to motivate you towards reaching your goal? Are you discussing your mental health goals along with your physical goals? So we approach sex, fitness, and food very comprehensively in all the same ways.
That is awesome. How has COVID impacted porn from production to popularity? What changes have you had to make during this time? And what changes do you think will last after COVID?
People have had a lot of free time on their hands to consume a lot more porn over the last year, for sure. And then also during a time where there was no sports, where there was like a lot of things were just on hold, I think a lot of people, you know, rediscovered, you know, the whole, people started following porn in a different way. Like they realized like you can find out a lot more about different performers and what they're into and what they like. Like some performers go on Twitch and play video games with people. Other folks like us, we have a whole lot of different aspects to our lives and to our business. So you can hop on, like when we've been doing lectures and different symposiums via Zoom, you know, so people have found out a lot about us and a lot more about us. So I feel like this time has helped people see the well-roundedness of adult performers. I also think, you know, I'll let, if Jazz, you want to touch on a little bit of what's changed within the shoots, but I definitely think the popularity has expanded. because also there was some, you know, for better or for worse, non-sex workers who discovered avenues for them to make an income during the pandemic. A lot of them it's been bad because they've lied to people, but I can't be mad at Beyonce for shouting out OnlyFans. That's how a lot of people even found out it existed, and they jumped on it. But then when you have someone like I forget the lady's name that just went on there and promised she was going to do something and never did it, that gives sex work a bad name. And that person is not a sex worker. They were, they just catfished people for money. But those kind of scandals then make people look into people who are doing it right. So, like with most things, it's a double-edged sword. But I do think the popularity has been pushed even more into the everyday conversation because the pandemic kind of put a lot of people in a position where it's like I can't go see my partner. I can't go, I can't go out to the club. So I don't know what's popping on Royal Fetish XXX.com. Shameless, non-shameless plug.
So to add to the logistics and kind of, it wouldn't be us if we didn't make if we didn't adapt our business and our business to the times, and doing that very openly. Again, like everything that we do is usually a model. Like it's our journey, and you're welcome to use it as a model. And so we've started socially distanced BDSM shoots, and really it's just helping people engage sexually with each other without having contact with each other. So I this is going to be one that I know that you're going to love. It's coming up soon, but it is a workout group meeting, like this, working out together, and then things get interesting. I'll just leave it there. But really cool things do happen on Zoom, right? Especially when you don't have alternatives to it. And so it was important for us to showcase being safe and still having sex. And we continue to have sex, so to speak, with our, with our clients, our co-stars, and our performers, but in a different way. If I'm telling you to penetrate yourself with your fingers, I'm having sex with you with your fingers, and so that experience and your fingers are going to do something different than they normally do because I am guiding them. So we are having a very, very unique, an experience that you just can't get anywhere, and showcasing for couples that you can still do this, or potential couples, and be safe and experience something new, which during the time of COVID, it feels like nothing is new, right? We're also moving forward. This pandemic, if we all we can focus on is going back to normal, we will be here again. If we can focus on how can we mitigate a situation like this again, or how can we prolong ever being here again, then we actually learn something from this. So we're moving into the boutique of porn. So Royal Fetish Film will be doing boutique style shoots. And so boutique is small, it's unique, and it's expensive. And it is. You do have to spend out when you are, making concessions and changing your business. But I think it's going to be beautiful. This means all of our talent and staff will be vaccinated prior to the shoot so that you can relax into the sex and not into the risk. And we can feel comfortable, like letting our juices flow, knowing that, we're safe, we're protected, and we care about talent, and that and that our talent care about each other as well, because they're coming into these spaces under the same agreement. We have our COVID checklist. It's like going to summer camp, but porn camp, where it's nobody in and nobody out during the times of our shooting. So that way we're not worried about germs being pulled in and those things. So it is changing the way that we're going to start doing in-person events, in-person shoots. But honestly, I feel more excited about it than ever, because it is causing for us to do a lot more team prep on the front end. And anytime you're able to connect a little bit earlier than the first day of shooting, you're going to see, better chemistry. So I'm super, super excited to see what adapting to the new times, what the benefit to that is going to be.
Okay. Bell Hooks writes, if men were socialized to desire love as much as they are taught to desire sex, we would see a cultural revolution. How do you try to integrate love into both porn and your educational platform? Is it even possible?
I think it is. I think we integrate it. Obviously, we love one another and we share that openly. We share the fact that we are also in an open polyamorous relationship, and polyamory is love of many. So we don't shy away from showing love or sharing love, and we don't we don't run away from even using the word where some people might as well. We like when we write about our scenes, if it's a scene that uh, involves a level of erotica, we don't uh, leave the word out because I think it's important. People can be lovers. People can be. There's so many different forms of love that people can have as well. So I think it's very important to incorporate it, and I do agree with uh, with that statement for sure. I think a lot of times men are indoctrinated to believe that in order to be a man, you have to be cold and you have to have no love. And that's not the way the world works. And even those people who have the most coldest facade usually love something very, very deeply that they're trying to protect. And that's why they're being so cold about everything else.
Okay. Anything jet setting, Jasmine?
No, I'd like to hold solid on King's point there.
Okay. King Noire, can you please tell us a little bit about your music?
That's a very open-ended question because I got a lot to say about music, but I've been I've been making music ever since I don't know, I always say since I was yay high, since I was a shorty, I've been making music. Started off creative writing, playing saxophone and the viola, and graduated into DJing parties and writing music. I've been able to tour the world and use my music uh, for a lot of good causes. And now I get to pretty much make the soundtrack for our films, and write love songs to Jasmine. So it's been really a great growth in music for me. I tell people definitely go check out all of my catalog. So for those who don't know me as King Noir, they might know me as Hassan Salam. And my music is my life. My music is my views on the world, my passions, and breaking down a whole lot of politics as well.
Okay. We'd also love to hear more about your work in West Africa. Can you please share some details about that project and other world projects you have?
Sure, I was the first American hip hop artist to perform in Guinea-Bissau, West Africa. I did some work translating music for the Baloberos crew, who's a rap group out there in Guinea-Bissau, and they had a song where they were talking about the corruption of the basically it's a military state in Guinea-Bissau, and they did a song talking about the corruption there, and I translated it with some help from my folks in Jersey to be able to translate the music and perform it in Brooklyn. I was part of a program that they were translating music from different artists all over the world who might have been in places where they didn't have freedom of speech. So off of that, I got to work with some amazing people who were like, let's get you to Guinea-Bissau. So I got to perform there. And when I returned, a very awesome woman by the name of Devin Austin was doing like her lineage. I think it was like the like what is that, 23andMe or something like that. One of those kind of things. And she found out that she was from Guinea-Bissau, so she wanted to help because at the time Guinea-Bissau was one of the poorest countries in the world, and she started off working with a program to get young women dresses to go to school, and then decided that she wanted to help to fix a school that had got washed away in the rainy season. So we were going to do a show, but a show is only one time. So I dedicated my entire album to getting that project done. Music is my weapon. And we were able to build a school that would not get washed away with a medical clinic that had solar panels. So Doctors Without Borders can do work all day and all through the night, and a fresh water well. And honestly, it's one of the most amazing projects I've ever been a part of. And if I did nothing ever else in my entire life, and I just did that, I would be very happy to move on to the next plane. Besides that, I also had the opportunity and the honor to go work with young children in Palestine in writing hip hop music as a way to combat the constant oppression that they face in the apartheid state of Israel and Palestine.
Okay, great. I know that Jet Setting Jasmine had to step away. She has work she has to go to. So we just have one more question for you, and then we'll just wrap this up. Is there anything, and because you know Jet Setting Jasmine, that the two of you would like our audience to know or take away from you and the work that you guys do?
Oh, I'm sorry. I think he was waiting for. Okay, I can jump on. I can wrap that up real fast, and then I'll pass it to you, King. Okay. I just want the folks that are listening to be able to hear the many ways that you can find intimacy throughout your lifetime, throughout your challenges, and that it is our God-given right. It's one of our most basic needs is intimacy, connection to others in relationships, and that it can look so different from partner to partner, from decade to decade, hell, from moment to moment. And that's okay. It's your body, your life to explore. So thank you for having us, and thank you for listening to our story. Thank you for doing the work that you do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I really just want to echo that and just let people know, man, there's no limits to the pleasure that you can explore when you just allow yourself to let go of the mental chains and roadblocks that have been placed there. Like, let go, break through them shits, be yourself and be loved, and that's it. And we'll see y'all on our website, and we will see y'all on social media. Thank you so much for building it.
Hey, thank you so
Yes.
much.
And then just really quickly, we want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak with you and better understand both of you guys' work. Where can our viewers reach out to you? Can you just please provide that last bit of information?
Sure. RoyalFetishXXX.com is the NS, the Not Safe for Work site. Definitely go to jetsettingjasmine.com and kingnoir.com for links to all of our music, to links to all of our social media articles, and yeah, if you Google us, you'll find a whole lot of stuff.
Mhm.
So you could fall down the rabbit hole, so to speak.
Thank you. Thank you so much again. We appreciate it. Thank you.